Okay, maybe let's start in order not to take too much of everyone's time. Lots of things happened this month, right? We released Quest V2 2 weeks ago. It's slowly growing. It's going to take a bit of time to really take off, but we expect to see again significant growth before the end of the year on this. It's already, I mean, we're already up 20% from last round. Let's see how much we'll be up this round. There's still some deposits expected today and tomorrow, so which should enable us to do a larger round than the last one. But yeah, basically, it really feels like we entered a new era with a fresh and new infrastructure that we can deploy and expand on. And as you'll see, we released a ton of things this year. Next year, one of our wish on the core team side is to release a bit less, but be much more focused and release a lot of quality stuff, and basically maintain and upgrade the basis that we have today with V2. So on the kind of BD side, the we will be focusing on the art of war in the sense that I think now it's time to go and eat the competition's market share. It's time to show that we have a good solution that we can provide the best liquidity management opportunity for projects. And yeah, we're gonna work a lot on this next year. Just for information, there will be one last community call around mid-December to celebrate the end of the year and another big year at Paladin with end of year data and recaps of everything, how the protocol went, what happened. And yeah, this is kind of an in between with the V2 release, but we don't have enough kind of visibility from it yet to really talk extensively about it. So it's kind of what's happening at Paladin in the ecosystem as a whole. But as some of you must have noticed, there's a lot more activity on the server in general. There's a lot more delegates. We appreciate everyone's contribution. So a lot of things are moving forward. The price action, where I think it's been like 4 months, 3 or 4 months if been that high if wise. So we've been going slowly back. CoinGecko is down, so it's actually a bit hard to see the price action, but we had a few large buys yesterday, so we're an interesting solution, closing on 12 cents, slowly climbing up back up. In terms of revenue, so we kind of went down over July, August, September, and October, uh, simply because we had the in between because we lost one big client which was tangible. Everyone knows how they ended up. Unfortunately, I hope they'll recover if they can. But yeah, so basically we were a bit going down from these through these ones. October with the release of Quest V2 kind of stopped the hemorrhage, so we kind of have a floor at $20,000 revenue, and yeah, now the goal is to go back up twice, thrice, 10x this over the next few months. It's going to be a challenge, but there are a lot of metrics that indicate that there's no reason we can't get to it. So I'm expecting a lot from November and December in terms of revenue. Moving on to protocol on liquidity, we actually posted a forum post on this like 1 hour ago, but we're starting to look at the Paladin chain as kind of irrelevant, so we might migrate to another pool. So if you have suggestions of what pool on Arbitrum could be interesting, we'd love to explore it. The mainnet pool and the Paladin on Curve is almost 100% owned by the protocol. So everything we're bribed, we're getting super good efficiently as 20% free every round, which is good in terms of CRV, which we can now sell into CVX, into USDC for operations. The Palfrax pool is doing well. Liquid is passing the litmus test, kind of. So we're thinking we just pushed a proposal in order to double the POL instead of moving into the Pal HM, which is well diluted. The Fraxpal is probably one that's really worth it in the sense that we could probably farm a lot on it, and having a large liquidity on Uniswap is essentially going to help us in having a good oracle, which will enable us to enable lending on Paladin at some point, which would be a good addition. In terms of goals, there's three goals. One that's coming near is that you all remember our debt with Mo. We basically have paid back $140,000 since the beginning of the year. 2 months ago, they asked us to stop repaying. Otherwise, the interest were getting really small. It was less interesting for them, which is okay considering we're paying roughly $2,000 of interest every month, 2,250 to be accurate. So what we're doing is that right now we're stacking revenue in order to be sure to pay them back entirely by mid-March. So right now we have in the collateral wallet roughly $420,000, half a bit more than half of which is POL, but there's easily $150,000 in YCRV and in ETH there. So do we know what we're going to be able to pay back from? The question will be what we'll choose as a DAO to pay back. I don't think the loan is a real danger anymore, which is good news. We're still on track to try and accumulate treasure in stablecoins. Right now, we haven't for obvious reasons, but I feel like we're going to start being able to enter in the interesting part of the cycle at the beginning of 2020 for this. And then something we have introduced in one of the last posts, as starting at the beginning of this year, in order to develop on Paladin, my company, Mr. Slabs, the one who has been acting as core team, will most likely start asking dev costs from the company. So the amounts are still negotiable and still need to work around everything. We've of course done efforts to cut back on spendings, etc. But we think that Paladin is in a shape where we'll be able to have a self-sustaining way to afford development costs just via the DAO. That's more about emissions, POL, and of course, in order to do it, we need to have rising revenue, right? Now let's move on to products, which is more of the interesting one. The Boost product has become in an interesting place. Right now, we're earning around 4,000 SDT per month, which equates to, I don't know exactly how much right now, but on most months it's roughly $2,000 every month. So it's an interesting one. It's a source of revenue. It's not huge, but it's existing. Pledge hasn't worked as much as we liked. We're still redoing the UX again because we had a ton of feedback on it. So we have some interesting ideas when the UX will be redone. But it's already a working line, and what's interesting is that, like most products, it's entirely immutable. So once we pushed it, we need no maintenance on it. So we could disappear; it would still perfectly work, and the DAO would still earn that money, even if it's not huge amounts. Moving on to Warlord, that's actually the good news. The beginning of Warlord, one of the problems was that Aura and CVX were down only. So what happens when you're combining a huge amounts of extra deposits and a huge amount of extra TVL? So we're up 252% just in war supply. So that's not in dollar wise. We're up almost 5x in terms of TVL in dollars. Over the last 2 months, the project has been blowing up. It's still not a lot, right? But if we get to 1 million by the end of the year, we'll have reached the target we were set out for Warlord. What's interesting is that right now it's quite imbalanced towards Aura, which is doing a lot of vote incentives. So we're providing an average of something like 40% APR in ETH. The reason why it nuked 2 weeks ago is that a lot of users deposited just after the cap for next round. So they deposited on Friday and Saturday before the first day. And what happened was simply that their votes were not counted, so they diluted everyone's yield. But now they are counted in the next round. So unless we get extra large deposits, next first day is going to be back to high yield days. And it's going to be a very interesting one. At the same time, Polgar is slowly progressing. I'd like to get them to get at least 50k TVL by the end of the year, but it's not up to us or even them. Like we just need to have people to understand the value. What's cool is that once we get to around 40-45% APR, they'll be at 60% APR with the auto compounding. So it will be insane. And now that we have fixed the weights, we expect a good amount of CVX to flow in. I think it's worth for the DAO to push it in, honestly, because the ETH APR is just massive. And once you start having like even if you put 100k in of CVX, you're getting 45k out in ETH. That's that's like 4k a month. It's just 2x the interest we have. So yeah, and that's without, of course, counting the fees we're taking on the operations. To very much sum it up, Paladin is taking roughly 2.5% of the TVL per year in fees. They're not actually taking money from the fees, but it's the best way to calculate it simply because of the fees we're taking on the compound of the rewards. So if you have 1 million TVL, you're making 25k a year, which is $2,000 a month. Right now we're at something of 1,500, which is good. So good. So that's really the big highlight of the last 2 months, and it's going the right direction. If you look at this, it's going up only, which is what we like. Um, Moving on to the state of delegation, another up on the chart. So CVX hasn't been as good as we wished. This is for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of competition around CVX. Maybe Warlord will help us get him back. What's interesting about this is that we kind of have a fix for this, which has already been pushed for governance. On the other side, VL Aura has grown to 2.35 million delegated. We have Avid that just delegated roughly 800,000 VL Aura to us, which is a good amount. It's going to enable us to fill up even more our quests and just have the machine keep going. And the VL leak, which was released slightly over a month ago, has grown a lot because it's simply the only one, and it's been slowly getting the market traction. So our auto voters are doing really well. The only one that's not doing as much as we wished was VLCVX. What we did in order to fix this is that we did a partnership with Yearn, and they have an incentive in basically voting for our requests because we're giving them an extra kickback in PAL, which is not huge, but it's enough for them to do so. That's the interesting one. And there's a lot few projects we can probably build a delegation on. We've been exploring a few ones, but right now the priority really is CVX, Aura, and then like as always, we're taking 0.5% in fees. This is just to cover gas costs. Um, we might bleed a bit with the guys going up again, but I guess that's life. If push comes to shove, we'll just increase to 0.75, but I don't think we'll need to get there, especially as the address grows bigger and bigger. And we expect growth on the delegation address because, as some of you might have seen, Humpy has built who is the large VBAL and VL Aura whale, is building his own auto compounder on top of VL Aura, which will be built on top of the Paladin delegation. So that's another good thing for the delegation. Let's move to this one. Okay, Quest. So unfortunately, there's not much to talk about for Quest, in the sense that it's just been released. If you look at the last round, this picture was actually missing at least $10,000 of incentives that were done on the V1 for the previous round. So we did roughly $32,000 of volume on the first 2 weeks of Quest V2. I'm expecting at least 40,000 for this round, so we'll see if we get there, but it's highly likely. And because most of the quests haven't been pushed yet, people are getting a bit lazy. But that's as long as the incentives are there by tomorrow evening, it should not be too much of a problem. So yeah, Quest V2 is live. If you have any feedback, please do send it to us. It's everything was rebuilt. We rebuilt the infrastructure, the whole database, the infrastructure behind to treat Quest, and there's a lot more that's going to enable us to decentralize it, to have 100x the number of different Quest markets if we want, and to build a few features that we were planning to do for a long time on top of it. So it basically creates an opportunity for us to create the strongest market for vote incentives by far, and this will only be made stronger by the upcoming tokenomics. Dullahan. So Dullahan is kind of the sad little brother when you consider the state of all of our other products, in the sense that Dullahan has very little use case until Go is repegging. So if you look around end of October, around the 25th, I was invited into the Go liquidity committee, and we elected Token Brice as the leader of the group in order to push for the repeg. So we have progressively been going towards a repeg, but it's going to take a bit of time. We shouldn't expect Go to go back to peg in 1 or 2 weeks. Probably going to take 1 or 2 months. But it's happening. And once this will happen, because the interest will be way higher, Dullahan will be a much better idea. Because if you think about it, at release, you were basically going between 1.5 and 1.1% APR, which was 40 BPS. It was not a lot that you were sparing. But now, you'll basically be between 4.3% and 3% APR thanks to Dullahan. So you basically be sparing a whole 1.3% on the side by using our product, which should get us a lot of tractions and enable us to release the integrations we have been planning to do once it is out. This is not great, but there's a lot of things that are being trialed around the repeg. We've been playing with Quest, of course. We've been playing with Merkle from Angle. We've been playing on Maverick, and it's very interesting for us also to understand what helps repeg a token, because it's going to be able to bake in new features into Quest to make our product simply better for LSTs and stablecoins in general. So around a huge opportunity for us on so many sites. It's happening at some point, for sure. Moving on to tokenomics, um, We've been emitting a bit less in emissions from vote incentives, as we discussed. We just pushed a proposal on this, by the way. We've basically gone from roughly 100K per week, per round, in terms of emission to 55K right now. So circulating supply has been growing less than before. But paradoxically, there's more and more of the supply that's state and locked compared to this. So this is good. As we see, the initial distribution of PAL for lockers is slowly going down. It's actually going to stop more or less at the moment where we release tokenomics. We're expecting to roll them out in a few months. So yeah, this is coming. This is a really big one, right? The vote flywheel. This job will be to make Quest V2 the de facto best vote marketplace, and we have seen a significant amount of interest into this between the announcement of the vote flywheel and the release of V2. We are seeing that the PAL is slowly crawling back from the dead. So it's going to be up to us to make this a successful growth period for Paladin. I think we're nearing the end of our community call on governance. There's a few proposals. Um, there's one for OTC deals, for to create a place for protocols for DAOs to basically come in and do OTC deals with the DAO if they want to accumulate Pi without taking too much slippage on the market, which I think is a great idea. And Lily Moon is at the head of this initiative. My biggest worry is whether or not we'll be able to find some of them to do so. But why not? On the whitelisting process for tokenomics, this was something that was announced very early on that we need to do. Please do participate if you have an opinion. There's been discussions about adding caps on top of the current tokenomics, so it's kind of controversial. But we'll have to push the vote probably by tomorrow or the end of this weekend in order to see what the rest of the community thinks. And there's an excellent proposal that was posted to create a small ambassador program by Coordinate. Uh, I'm not sure if it needs more participation or not for governance. There's no post on Snapshot. Nothing is being voted on right now, but there will likely be a few votes next week. Another proposal was posted just a few hours ago, which is why we didn't include it here, which is for in terms of treasury management. It's basically just housekeeping, pushing a few more LPs onto Liquis for the PAL frags, and on top of this, have just extend a bit the incentives program for until the release of tokenomics. So nothing fancy, just a few housekeeping stuff. Now that Quest V2 is live. By the way, if some of you are at Def Connect next week, please send us a message. Some of our team will be there, and we'd love to meet. In terms of outlook, what can you look out for? One of the big things we're working on right now is enabling Quest V2 cross-chain. It should be made soon. Actually, it's kind of multi-chain in the sense that you'll be able to deposit and redeem specific incentives on L2s instead of L1s, which should be significantly cheaper. We also are working on Zaps for Warlord to enable people to deposit it from USDC and ETH. These are things we're trying to push out by the end of the year, so we'll see. And then after that, we'll be releasing the new tokenomics. So that's kind of what you can look for Paladin over the next few months. It's a lot of basically lesser projects that will make the whole ecosystem that we're building together much stronger. So yeah, I think that's about it. There's a pod for those of you who attended. I don't know if you have any questions. Now is the time. We'll let the timer run for like 3 minutes if people have questions. And yeah, thank you for coming, guys. Timeline is soon for the release of the tokenomics. I see Cyber was asking. Yeah, we're being vague because in development cycle we've learned this the hard way. You never really know when you're going to release. To give you an idea, we ideated Quest, the base version of Quest, in April 2021, but we only were able to release Quest in May 2022. The same way that we had the basic plans and the whole specs for Quest V2 in January this year, but we only were able to release it end of October because initially we're targeting early September, but it's just sometimes you have delay in the production. Sometimes you have audits and security concerns that take a bit more time than anticipated, and sometimes you realize a few things that you thought would work don't actually work in prod. So it just takes a bit more time than anticipated, and that's why we're saying a few months. We're targeting very early next year because it would make more sense than release something over Christmas, right? But yeah, that's why we're saying we're being deliberately like it's just we don't want to have people invest or take speculate on the date and then get disappointed uh, because we lied to them. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying on the Boost product. It's been very hard to deploy it just because it's a niche concept, but also because no one else is doing it, right? So we're the only ones trying, and considering the revenue size of such product, we can't be full time on it, right? We have to focus on Quest, which is the big revenue bringer. But I do agree that there is a lot of potential. And one of our insights at Paladin is that we're convinced that as reputation based governance appears, boosting type products will grow massively and will be the project that can actually basically profit from it because we'll be there from the beginning and we'll have a deep understanding of it. We had a talk about this with a few of them. What we realized is that large lockers don't really have an incentive. By large lockers, I mean Convex and and the Aura don't really have an incentive in buying the boost because they're kind of overwhelming already. So if you go towards one of their competitors, you're also undermining your relationship with Convex or Aura. And when you look at the size of incentives they're depositing, what we can possibly build with them, I don't think we have as much in it to win. When you look at how much revenue we stand to make, maybe $1,000 extra a month, and let's say 4,000 max, compared to what we stand to gain by collaborating with Convex or Aura. So I think in terms of option, we can leave it open. If someone comes in and wants to make it happen, sure. But I don't think we should facilitate or push to do this when we have so much invested in Convex and Aura, especially with Warlord today, right? But it's a real discussion, and I think there's going to be a lot more of it. When you have like a more PvP type system, like what StakeDAO has built with VSDT, you see that the Boost product is much stronger. One interesting, very interesting part about this actually is that there's a few VSDT aggregators that are appearing, and because they know our Boost product, they're actually really interested in using it to create additional revenue. So what we're possibly going to see is quite an explosion of VSDT being sold over the next few months. Yeah, if you have most of the boost, you don't have an incentive in having much more. You have an incentive in having everyone else. It's spread very thin, which is kind of counterintuitive. I agree. Okay, everyone. Any other questions? If not, we've already been at it for 30 minutes. So thank you everyone for showing up. I hope fall is not too bad for you guys. And yeah, enjoy your evening or your day, depending on what time it is. And see you very soon for a lot more.